Hello, my name's Allison and welcome back. For the past few weeks, I've been drawing the Septic egos inspired by Death Omens. First, I did Chase and Nancy, inspired by Doppleganger, and I did Schneep, inspired by Black Opal, and last week, I drew JJ, inspired by Broken Clock. And now this week, I'm drawing Jackie Boy Man, inspired by the Death Omen, the Black Dog. If you're interested in watching the previous videos, I'll have a link to them in the description below. And I also have a playlist link to them in the end card at the end of this video too. And the series is also pretty close to being finished, with Jackie being the second and last one, and I'll be drawing Marvin next week, which I'm really excited for you guys to see. And Jackie having to deal with a black dog is actually what inspired this entire series in the first place. Just mostly on the idea of like, what if Jackie deals with the black dog and heckin' asks Schneep if they can adopt, the black dog of death. And from there, it kind of made me think about which death omens would affect which egos. And I started working on the thumbnails and then this series. I chose the black dog for Jackie because what if Jackie encountering this black dog of death becomes the catalyst for other death omens to affect the rest of the egos. Plus, the basic definition of omen is a phenomenon that is believed to foretell the future. So it's like this death omen in particular that just basically gave Jackie, or maybe even Marvin, since he's more aware on folklore and magical creatures, and kind of gave him this feeling of dread that something is going to happen, and it might kill one of them, or even all of them. And to kind of go more into the black dog as a death omen, the black dog is a spectral and or demonic entity that takes the form of a dog. And there isn't any kind of a solid origin for the black dog. It's hard to say if the dog's origin is from Celtic or Germanic elements in British culture. But I still think it works really well, since, Sean himself is from Ireland and is now currently living in England, which probably means his ego characters are from those areas too, and how all the death omens I'm associating with the egos are also originating from those areas, and even from Germany for Dr. Schneep. And to kind of go back into the black dogs, what the black dog is different from story to story. They can be dangerous, such as a Barkhest, in which a mythical monstrous dog would roam the side roads of York and prey on passerby. Or they might haunt a town, such as the town of Lyme-Redis in England. Some black dogs are said to be a witch's familiar, or might not be dangerous at all, such as the guardian black dogs. They're a rare type of death omen dog that is neither, a death omen or cause of death. Guardian black dogs will guide travelers at night onto the right path or protect them from danger. Oh wait, what if the guardian black dog is what Jackie encounters? That yes, this black dog is still a catalyst and causes death omens to affect the other egos, but what if the guardian black dog guards and protects Jackie from being attacked by any other kind of death omen? So then it becomes this story of Jackie and his now pet death omen black dog trying to save the other egos from the death omens that affected them. And now I kind of want to draw that, of just like Jackie and his now pet death omen guardian black dog, and just Jackie giving his pet death omen scratches and belly rubs, because he's a good omen boy who deserves love. And to kind of get into the process in drawing this, I wanted to kind of show that the black dog took Jackie completely by surprise, hence his expression, and the black dog taking a good portion of the drawing. And while it may look like the dog is going to attack Jackie, since that was the intention in the first place, I wanted to go for this piece. I've also kind of liked the idea of just Jackie and his pet death omen, so if instead the black dog just runs around Jackie and growls at whatever's ahead of them, and then follows Jackie around. I don't know, I just really like the idea that Jackie adopts Death Omen because they're a good boy. But because the Death Omen black dogs are a spectral creature, I wanted to look like this black dog was kind of smoky and ghost-like. And on the Wikipedia page for the black dog, it is described to be larger than a normal dog and have large glowing eyes. So when it came down to figuring out how I wanted to design Jackie's black dog, I wanted to look like the inside of this dog is this glowing source of energy that could be shown through the dog's eyes, nose, and mouth, and even on the more thinner parts of the dog's spectral form, and to be kind of shining from there as well. And when it came down to choosing what color I wanted that glowing energy to be, I chose red. Because not only would it fit Jackie's color palette, but the color red in the Septic Ego story, more specifically a glowing red, is associated with Auntie because of dark silence. Kind of making a glowing red associated with, well, death and evil, which works really well for a Death Omen. Trying to figure out how to get the glowiness for the dog was a hard process because while I've drawn artwork that has glowy stuff in it, I haven't really messed with it glowing from underneath fur before. So what I did was I separated the color layers for the dog into 5 layers. The first layer for the head, second for the top layer of the fur, third for the bottom layer of the fur on the neck, fourth for the top layer of the body, and the 5th layer for the bottom layer of the body. And the goal was to have parts of those layers to be a bit transparent. So when I create a new layer in between those individual 5 layers, it would look like red was peeking out. And then create a new layer above the other layers and kind of paint a little bit more to it. And make the dog look better and have it more look like it was fur. So when I do glowy stuff, I'll duplicate the layer twice, giving me 3 of the exact same layer, and change both the top and the bottom layer into the add layer mode, and give the top layer a tiny Gaussian blur effect, and the bottom layer a much more larger Gaussian blur effect. And from there, I'll change the opacity for the 3 different layers till it looks good. I also recommend just doing a bunch of experimenting with layer modes to kind of see what gives you the best result. Because I've also found color dodge and screen to be pretty good for glowy effects too. But what I did for the black dog specifically though, is I created a new layer and outlined over the eyes and mouth in white, then changed the color to pink using the alpha lock, and then dropping the color in there. Then I duplicated twice and put both duplicate layers to the top, above all the other layers. Then changed the layer modes for both to add and mess with the Gaussian blur effect. Then I went back to a different layer where I did a lot of painting over and added black shading to help make the pinkish reds pop out. And just made sure some of the shapes and forms were sharp enough. And that was when the dog started to look kind of pinkish. But at that point, I was finally starting to work on the line art for Jackie. I worked more on Jackie last because since the black dog is a source of light for this piece that will reflect onto Jackie, I want to have the black dog be pretty good in the sense of completion, so I had a sense of how bright the light source was going to be. After getting in the line art for Jackie and for the dog and adding more darker shading, I started figuring out what to do for the background. And in this case for the piece, the focus is on the characters. So I just did a simple gradient background. Originally for the gradient, I had it as a bright pink, but then changed it to a more darker purple, allowing Jackie and the dog to pop out instead of getting lost into the background. Now at this point, I was pretty close to being finished with this piece. All that was left was finishing the coloring on the black dog and start shading for Jackie. And when I'm doing it for a character and the background is pretty dark, I start off with shading in the entire character in a dark purple with the layer at 50% opacity and on the overlay layer mode. Then I used the eraser to erase the shadows of where the light and highlights were going to be. And that was when I took the color of the light source and started adding in the highlights. And that is the process into drawing Jackie, inspired by the death omen, the black dog. Oh, and one last thing I want to talk about is that recently I posted a super quick process video of a sketch I was working on all my different social medias. And it was basically, instead of sketching something out using a pencil brush, I instead used my coloring brush to just form the shapes I wanted for the characters. And then building on smaller shapes on top of those for more details. I've been doing some more experimental drawings with this different way of sketching stuff out. And what I found is what I really like about it is that it starts making me think in 3D and has actually helped me with drawing a foreshortened arm. And with also placing and figuring out anatomy and with hand poses too. I think just for a comparison, almost a good way to think on it is that it's kind of like sculpting. Like how you start with a simple shape, such as a sphere, and as you add more to that sphere, the more of what you're sculpting forms into a recognizable head or something. It's the same way, just instead you start with a circle and add more shapes onto it. And I actually plan on using this way of sketching for 2 drawings I plan on doing Speedpaint for. And I'll even add in the process of sketching it out for those videos, so you can see a much more clear way than my ramblings of what I'm trying to explain. Plus, I don't know, maybe hopefully it'll be helpful for anyone who uses shapes to sketch out your character, or if your style is more cartoony. Plus, I definitely found it helpful for my own style too. But yeah, that is the process into drawing Jackie, and is now apparently Pet's Death Omen dog. As always, he'll be available as a print on my Redbubble. Links to that and my other social media pages, and links to the previous Death Omen speed paints will be in the description below. And next week is the last part to the Death Omen speed paints. I'll be drawing my magnificent boy Marvin, which I'm very excited about. But I won't say which Death Omen I'm going to be drawing for Marvin yet. But I also kind of think it might be a little bit more easier to figure out. So I'm actually kind of curious if you guys can guess it correctly. And that is all from me. Thank you so much for watching. Please take care of yourself. Don't overwork yourself. And I hope you have an amazing day.